Good afternoon, everybody. So, as I'm sure today you all are a little bit tired. I don't know whether it's work day. Is it work day today or weekend? So usually in India, they have like a half day, right? So Saturday is the half day where you work a little bit. In the afternoon, you have the empty day. So I thought it was the same. So anyways, so I would like to start the session. Uh, but I would request you all to not just look at me as a teacher, but as a guide, like a guide who has learned about Buddhist philosophy and whatever, and just try to be more open and have more interactions with you. Like sometimes when we have this type of sessions, it becomes like too rigid in forms of what do we call? Uh, like a question and answer, so not much interaction happening, right? So let's try to have more interaction during this term. So as we started the session, then the first thing is the motivation for, as we are going to start a Dharma session, the first thing is the motivation, right? So as the motivation, the prayers and all, basically what the prayers and all are doing is they are preparing you for the motivation, preparing you for the Dharma, right? So the definition of motivation here is basically having a pure thought. So you can either generate your bodhicitta or just have a pure thought of wanting to change yourself, right? So that can just be the motivation here. If you are practiced and all, then you can generate bodhicitta and wanting to listen this dharma for the sake of benefit for the all of the beings, right? So that is the one of the most important things, like whatever work you do, whatever you want to do, right? So uh, especially in a dharma session, it's really important to have this type of motivation, to have the want to change yourself, right? So then, of course, bodhicitta, I just explained a little bit about it. So especially bodhicitta is like generating the want for yourself to attain enlightenment for the sake of the other beings, right? So just a short explanation, and I won't go much deep into it. Of course, there is the seven cause and effect ways to generate bodhicitta, or you changing your oneself as the other and to generate bodhicitta, whichever path you like, you can choose to do. The main thing is have a pure heart, to not have the negative emotions, right? So not having the emotions basically like I'm going to listen to this dharma and I'm going to boast to my friends about it, that I listened to this dharma, I have attained this dharma, right? So that's the thing. So the topic that we are going to basically talk about is ancient everyday wisdom for the modern people, right? So, and sometimes, so let us think like an artist. I can see Joel there, who's an artist. Uh, let's think like an artist, and let's try to think of an ancient ancient people, and how an artist would depict such people, right? And let's try to think uh, how they will depict a modern person. Joel, you have any suggestions on how an artist would depict ancient people? Maybe like somebody philosopher wearing a some like old clothes and thinking, right? Or holding a book, maybe. Yeah,
Maybe just try to put ourselves in their context of
yeah.
uh,
So maybe you would like depict them like holding a book and s- like thinking about something or so on, right? With like a little bit of painting difference and all.
drinking tea.
Yeah, drinking tea, etc. And how would you depict what do we call modern person?
Uh,
The picture that generally comes to mind is somebody holding a laptop in front of them.
with their mobile.
Yeah, somebody generally holding a mobile in front of them, right? So, so that's the basic picture that we have of ancient and the modern, right? But so, but here what we are going to talk about is the ancient wisdom that applies still in the modern, what do we call modern society, modern world, or what? So let's think. Right now, the change that has happened from the ancient time till now is that we can picture ourselves as holding a smartphone in the hand, right? And having, it's a simple device that connects us to the billions around the globe, around the world, right? Each swipe, each swipe, each comment, each share. Is it share? Yeah, share. Sharing. These interactions happen from a small screen, like a one that can be like as big as my hand or bigger than that, probably. So interaction from a small screen can have a profound impact on the others, right? So that this is the type of the world that we live in right now, where a like can uplift somebody's mood, or a comment that you make online can, what do you call, make them think negative, uh, or make them think negative or hurt them, right? Hurt them. So uh, this interconnected world where our actions can echo across like different countries in a matter of seconds. Suppose this session, or let's say some of you have already posted. So happy to be in this session. Then this post has already gone. People can see it in India, right? India or anywhere else. So we are living in an era that where the future, or where we our attention is drawn from one moment to the next in such a sense that a breakneck speed, right? Breakneck speed. Like, of course, we watch, what do we call, videos, Netflix videos, and any more, Instagram, YouTube, yeah, TikTok. Oh, yeah, TikTok is here, right? So basically, from one reel or one video to another, we are going from at a breakneck speed, like one attention, then next attention, then next. Then that, uh, even though we are living in such a world, the core question, why are we doing this, right? Why are we scrolling mindlessly? Is there anyone who scrolls mindlessly? Mindlessly in the sense that, yeah. Anybody else? No? Like, watch one thing, then get to the next thing, then get to the next thing. Suddenly 3 o'clock is 5 o'clock, right? So uh, this, but in the core of it all, we are still searching for happiness, right? In the moment of 1 second to another, we are searching for a video that makes us happy, makes us smile, or makes us want things. Like either it makes us want things, or either it makes us happy and emotional. It triggers a emotion or whatever, whether it be positive or negative in our minds, right? So, but the core question remains is that we want to be happy, right? The core question is, we are scrolling to get our mind off something. Suppose you had a very bad day at work, your boss scolded you, and you came back, your children are not listening to you, your friend, you had a fight with your friend, right? You had a fight with your friend or whatever, and you just want to get your mind off things. So basically, we are seeking a refuge in the Instagram reels, or instead of taking refuge in the three jewels, we are basically taking refuge in the mindless scrolling to distract our mind, right? Distract our mind and find. We just go for distractions, but they were thinking how to be happy, how to connect with people, right? Because during that time, probably during that time, probably there was not so many distractions like we have compared to today. Of course, there may be distractions, but not so much as compared to today. So they would be thinking about what is the core meaning of being happy? Is it physical? Is it mental? Right? So they come up with the wisdom of to be happy. The main thing is having your mental well-being, right? Being happy mentally, right? Not physically. These days, what we are focused more on is the material. Is it correct? Yeah, correct word. It's the materialistic happiness that we are seeking, but they were seeking happiness internally. So the same questions that they had, the same questions are still tugging at us, right? Tugging at our hearts. What is the purpose of my existence? Why do I exist, right? How can we lead a life full of meaning and fulfillment and be happy, right? These questions, I'm sure, like uh, you may have had in some point of your life, or maybe you already found the answer, right? So if you have already found the answer, I would like to ask you, has anyone found the answer? So probably like we are still struggling, right? Even in our younger age, like middle age, and let's say old age also, right? So, but these days, because we don't have in a fast-paced, it's a fast-paced world, right? It's a fast-paced world where we want something. Okay, let's go to Amazon. Is there Amazon here? Yeah, there is, right? Let's go to Amazon. Or there was one Shopee. Is it Shopee? Yeah. There was one on let's go to Shopee, or what's that? Grab. Taxi is the Grab, right? We want something, we just go online. Instant gratification, right? So we are feeling sad. You want to eat something while you are sad. Then is it food? Food vendor. Okay. You go to food vendor, order something. You want to eat this. You want to have a taste. So it gives instant gratification and raises our desires more and like have more like problematic repercussions maybe, right? So we don't get that much time because of all the distractions and all the instant gratification that's happening of thinking these core questions that we generally have, right? So we are distracted. So in our session today, we will try to like unravel to the book. I'm sure you got the booklet. To the booklet, the profound insights of the ancient wisdom, right? Profound wisdom. They are not just relics, right? Relics to be admired from afar, but they are the, what do we call, living guides that help us navigate through this complex world, right? Complex and what do we call? Complex and interconnected world, right? So uh, it's the same thing that what they were having at during that time, we are still having that problem. And because they had more time to think about it, they came up with certain solutions, right? And as we are too engrossed in our, let's say, if you don't bring profit or if you don't, what do we call, do one upmanship, is it called one upmanship to others, you won't survive in this world, right? This is the, I feel like, the type of world that we are going in generally. So here, the problems that we are facing are social dilemmas and personal dilemmas, right? And social crisis or whatever, and wars happening suddenly out of nowhere, right? For a small reason. So these are the problems that they were having at that time. We are also having at that time. So they came up with internal solutions. We came up with materialistic solutions. So in such a world, the wisdom of the ancient masters not just becomes personal, but also globally, right? It's just not for the values of consideration, empathy, and let's say bodhicitta and etc., right? So kindness, they are not just for a personal point of view, but also for a global point of view. The ancient masters' understanding of harmony, right? And balance and interconnectedness, it not just becomes relevant in this world of a fast-paced online world, but it also becomes essential to have this kind of values, the values of consideration, empathy, and what was what was the other things? Yeah, bodhicitta and kindness, loving kindness, and so on, right? And having uh, not having egoistic approaches towards things, right? So these ancient teachings, these ancient wisdoms can illuminate our path, right? Our path, or help enrich our lives and help forge a future where there is more understanding for each other, more happiness, right? It depends on how we, how, let's say, how we interact right now, interact right now, and how we shape our environments that will bring forward a future that is more, what do we call, harmonious and what do we call, happy, right? Happy and harmonious society. So, so this is how the ancient wisdom is still relevant, still needed, still essential in this world, right? So to understand this. So as we go into more into the texts that you all have, then we will try to unfold each of these concepts more deeply, right? These ancient principles, especially for the young generation, like especially for the young generation. Of course, for certain period, we have like our parents talking to us, giving us human values, right? I'm not saying that this new generation parents are not giving human values. Of course, they are giving, right? Of course, they are trying their best to give. But what happens is, due to exposure to social media is like what do we call it? Let's say it's a it's an ocean, right? Basically, it's an ocean where you can find the good in it, you can find the bad in it. If you depends on the algorithm or whatever, right? Is there a yeah? It's a double-edged sword. Is there a tech person here? Anybody who is like a techie? Yeah. Suppose it depends on the algorithm, right? Suppose you just watch negative videos, you will only get bombarded with the negative videos, right? And if you watch only positive videos, then you get bombarded with the positive ones. So it depends on the what do we call the algorithm or whatever, however they have made it, right? So I'm sure you all have experienced this. Suppose you watch a video of a what's the most famous video here? Let's say cats, right? Cats and dogs. Is it like a, is it like a usual thing here or no? Like you watch like cute cats, right? Cute cats doing funny things, right? Then you get bombarded with each of the same content, right? So this is how the social media distracts us. So for a young generation, if they if they look at something negative, then they get bombarded because of the algorithm, right? I'm not saying that whether the social media is bad. It's like a double-edged sword, as they said it, right? It's a double-edged sword. It can be used for the positive, it can be used for the negative. But usually what happens is it's hard to use it for the positive, and easy to use it for the negative, to get virality, right? Suppose, let's ask a question. There are two posts, right? Which one would you be likely to click on more? Like one post is about, let's say, a controversial statement, whatever, right? This guy almost killed me. There's one post like that. And the other post is like, this guy gave me $1 or something. Which post are you likely to click on? Second? Which one? Which one? Which one would you click on? I would, huh? Let's see. Let's do a vote, right? Mostly on this guy tried to kill me one. How many? uh, so it's like that, right? So we have this funny like kind of, what do you call, thinking, curiosity. Yeah, this feels more curious, right? This guy tried to kill me, then we would click more on that, right? So why is that? We think, right? We just want to. It may be curiosity, but it may be like wanting to know what happened next, right? Wanting to know what happened next. The desire to delve into the secrets of how happened with that man. Okay. So we are more, of course, we have a good qualities inside us, but that good qualities often get suppressed by the, what do you call, the happenings of world and whatever distractions that we have, right? So here now, what we are going to do is we are not just going to discuss the concepts that are mentioned in the text, right? We are trying to uncover a roadmap to living a life that balances personal fulfillment with profound consideration for others, having a happy life yourself without harming others, right? With consideration for others. So, so as we go on in the text, I would like you all to ask the question again and again, right? How can ancient wisdom guide us in creating a world that flourishes on human values, right? One question is this. The second question is, how can we, in our daily lives, right, try to practice this ancient wisdom that has been, uh, what do you call, the ancient wisdom of human values, of consideration, humility, which are so essential in this world, but still challenging, challenging to practice in this fast-paced dog eat dog. Is it called dog eat dog? No? Or survival of the fittest. Is it also called that, right? Survival of the fittest world, right? So this text, despite containing specific advice on the Buddhist Dharma, the primary matter of this book, the, what do you call, what's the name? The Garland of Essential Advice, right? So basically, even though it contains specific Buddha Dharma texts, Buddha Dharma advices, the core meaning of this is guided by basic human values and societal norms. And perhaps more importantly, what's it called? Common sense, right? Okay, thank you. So this is the text. And especially the text itself was by Dromtönpa Gyalwai Jungné, right? So Dromtönpa Gyalwai Jungné in the sense is like a layperson. So it won't mostly most of the other texts are composed by great master who are monks. So they would be talking from a monk's perspective, right? Most of them would be monks, and they would be talking about monk's perspective, saying that you have to leave everything and go into go into what, where do you call, yeah, jungle jungle to meditate. You have to go into a cave to meditate. But this book, I find it is really good for the lay persons, because like it focuses, it can be related, right? Some of the verses focuses on, let's say, office politics. It can be. It can be. Of course, I'm not sure whether Dromtönpa Gyalwai Jungné went to office or not. If he had gone to office, I'm sure his boss was Atisha. Uh, and then there would be no politics, I'm sure. So office politics, like how to avoid like difficult friends, right? Difficult friends, difficult office politics, like let's say somebody else taking credit for what you have done, right? I'm sure you may have more experience in that because of that, right? So furthermore, this text is asked specially by Nakso Sutim Jawa to Dromtönpa Gyalwai Jungné about like for the lay persons of like how to lead a good family life, right? How to lead a good life, even though not practicing dharma, how can you lead a good life, right? So this is why this type of ancient wisdom, right? Ancient wisdom is really important during this time, especially on the fast-paced world that we are living in currently. So the psychological. So uh, the happiness that we usually are doing right now is materialistic, right? So for me personally, I don't know how you all feel, but for me personally, if your mind is at rest, right? If your mind is at rest, uh, sorry, I'm having tongue twister. If your mind is at rest, you would generally be happy wherever you are, right? Doesn't matter whether it's in a prison. Of course, in prison, it's supposed to be. Okay, I'll just give you an example. Do you know Gaden Rimba? Okay, he was a practitioner in Tibet, right? So he was in prison, but during the prison also, he was practicing his mindfulness and etc. So he didn't have any problem. The other persons who were together with him in the prison got crazy, right? So even in a situation like where you are put in a prison, if you can control your mind, if you can practice whatever, right? Whatever, not practice whatever, practice the teachings of bodhicitta and consideration and whatever, you would be happy. You can be happy. Okay. So I'm not saying that you should go to prison to be happy. Of course, you should not go to prison in any sense, but okay. But sometimes it feels like the prison is the best place to practice mindfulness. So that's the thing. So this is why we need the wisdom of ancient psychology, right? The since is there any other doctors here? Dr. Lillian, Cheesy is there? Eh, okay. So, oh, I see you. Yeah. So I don't know probably, but the recent psychology that is going around, right? When was it founded? Founded meaning when it started to become more relevant is around 90s, I think. 90s or 80s. Okay. The general, it should be like it's a new thing, right? I know that neuroscience itself, right? Neuroscience meaning the workings of brain or whatever, right? So it is a new study that's going on in science world, right? It's considered to be young type of this, but this was done before that. So this teaches us how to control our mental emotions. So this is why we need ancient wisdom here to during this online world, how to control our emotions, how to uh, post things that are relevant and more positive, right? And more considerate towards the others. So I'll give you one situation. Uh, Probably you may have had this. Okay, most of you may have social media, right? Social media. You post something. Then have you noticed somebody giving a bad comment? Anybody? Yes, Pei may have the most experience. Anybody else? Like a keyboard warrior, right? Keyboard warrior in the sense that uh, they always talk negative, right? in the sense that whatever you post, whether it's positive, negative, and they will say things like, okay, why is this small thing? Okay, so okay, let's say I'm wearing the mic and mic is a little bit slanted, right? And they say, why is the mic slanted? Is this triggering my OCD? Right? It's triggering my OCD. It's creating problems for me, right? But if we meet the person in person, they may not be like that, right? So in this social media time, even though we are connected online through online, like we don't have that, mm, let's say, how much time do you think you are spending online versus having more human interactions? Can you compare the time? Uh, Anybody who can compare the time? Like, let's say 24 hours, right? Let's say in one day, 24 hours, you divide it. You sleep, you eat. So let's say you are awake for 18 hours, less more than 18 hours, then work and this screens, right? How much human interaction you are having versus how much online time you are spending. Of course, doctors are an exception. Like they have to interact with the patients every time, right? But generally, would you rate your timing be more towards the screen, having more screen time or less screen time than having interaction? Okay, weekdays, weekends also.
I'm just thinking about, between weekdays and weekend. Weekdays, I guess we are all busy with work. Sometimes you need human interaction, meetings, and then conference call.
Yes.
Whereas, of course, I think occasionally you will sort through Facebook. What does it say? But weekend, I think for myself, I spend more, and then interaction with family member maybe lesser. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm speaking for myself, lah.
Okay. So generally speaking, like compared to the previous generations, right? Previous generations, we are spending more time online, right? We are spending more time on the screens than having human interactions, right? So what usually happens is when we are not having that much interaction and we are basically more online, is that, and also online is a really funny place, right? It's a really funny place. I think like most of the keyboard warriors, I'm sure you are familiar with the term, right? Uh, most of them hide their face so that the profile face is not there. Even if they are not hiding their face, they are basically like, because they don't have to face the person right now. They are not thinking of what it may cause later. And it is, they are not they feel that, of course, they are accountable for their words and actions, whatever they do online, but they feel that they are not accountable, right? They feel that they are not accountable in right now. And the emotion that just seeing that face, whatever emotion comes, we tend to, we, I'm not saying I'm a keyboard warrior, okay? I'm not saying you all are also keyboard warriors. I'm not saying we in that sense. Then we tend to vent it out, criticize it, just not taking time to relax and see whether it's an emotional response, emotional, what do we call, reaction, or whether we are really responding, right? So that's the thing. So uh, in Buddhist perspective, right, the principles of right speech and compassion can help us like navigate to all this, right? So that's the thing. So when, of course, like when we have less interactions, we feel, when we have physical interactions with people, of course, some people are hard to deal with, they are hard to talk with, but that creates a more, what do we call, understanding of yourself and more connection, right? But online, we don't know. The person is different from the person usually is different online and offline, right? Online and offline. So this type of like understanding from the ancient wisdom, we can understand why this is happening, right? Of course, you will have to think a little bit more, but because this type of advices are like short and concise, but we can expand it, right? So that's the thing. So that's what basically Dharma is. Usually what when we say the Dharma, right? Dharma is not translatable in English. Dharma, is there a word for Dharma in English? We usually say it's a really hard word to translate it in English. I'm speaking this from a translator experience point of view. Dharma, when translated to Tibetan, it has been translated as change, right? Chu, just chu, chu meaning change, right? So what's there to change? You're not changing the object. Basically, the Dharma itself, in the core meaning of Dharma, is to change one's own mental being, not being. Okay, so basically, mental being meaning mental way of thinking and etc. We must not look at Dharma just as a religious thing that some religious people practice, but it is a way to change yourself. That is Buddha Dharma, right? Buddha Dharma or whatever. So what's the change is meaning from changing your negative mental side to the positive mental side. So that's the thing. So sometimes when we practice Dharma, usually there is a saying, right? Like the Dharma, to really practice Dharma, you have to let go of this life and practice for the next life, right? Practice so that you will be able to attain betterment in the next life and so on, right? But sometimes when doing this, we ignore the fact that what we do in this life affects how we interact with people, how we come to what do we call have the different interactions with people, affect what happens in the next life, right? Letting go of this life doesn't mean you don't have any interaction with others, you don't have any what do you call mm, talk with others, but it just means like not have the attachment to this life. So it's really important for us to know how to handle different situations where office politics or whatever, different situations where many problems arise in this life, right? So that's the thing. I will not be reading the first few paragraphs, but in the first few paragraphs, it's said that even though Nakso was saying that I know what needs to be done in the sense of next life, right? But uh, give me some advice so that I can attain societal values, right? Human values, so that I may not be criticized by people. I may be liked by people, right? So basically it's saying that how can I be likable to everybody, right? Isn't that, which one would you choose? I would like to ask you, would you be likable to people or be hateable to people? Huh? Of course, likable. We have this inner, what do we call, inner want to be liked by everybody, right? Even though we try to endeavor towards that, and we make a lot of mistakes along the way, and we end up being hated by everybody, right? So in basically this, in the text, third, but please drive into my heart societal values that will put me in harmony with ordinary people I associate with in this life that can be despised by critical people. So basically, Nakso is asking to Dromtönpa, right? Dromtönpa for having a having a what do we call societal values so that he can be liked by everybody, right? So is it possible to be liked by everybody? It's really hard, right? But we can try, as Dom will say in his later verses, like maybe we can cover this tomorrow in the later verses, like how to respond in a certain situation so that person, of course, how much ever we try, that person may have some ill being, but we try these ways, right, mentioned in this, to reduce the impact, reduce the hatefulness towards us, right? So that's the thing. So so in the like first three paragraphs, you can see like drum, and this text is basically a question and answer session between a teacher and a student, right? Nakso and drum. So it's really important to, according, if I just talk from a like a religious point of view, right? A religious point of Buddha Dharma point of view, it's really important to have this the right guru, right teacher, right? Right teacher in the sense to show you the right path. Of course, like the teacher right now for most of us is online. The teacher, usually we say, what do you call the teacher that is of all good qualities, right? And we pay homage to the teacher, right? But right now, I think most of us will pay homage to the Google for answering our questions. Suppose some of you may be going to classes, right? I need a question. I need a question answered. I search it on Google and I thank Google for it, right? So, uh, so here, what I'm trying to say is, even if the teacher is really important in the physical sense that the teacher-student relationship, guru devotion, and all these are really important in the sense of Buddha Dharma and the religious sense, right? But it's also really important to know that what you consume online, right? The online can be here interpreted as your teacher, right? Can be as your teacher. What the teacher, there's positive and negative. So I'm not saying all the teacher should be negative, but the negative content that we consume online can be considered as a negative teacher, right? For younger generations, young people, like whatever they consume, they tend to, I realize that they tend to adapt that, right? Because usually what they say is during the young age, they are mostly like what they see, they do, right? So if they see a lot of violent things, they will tend to become more violent, right? So when they tend to see more positive things of etc., they tend to become more. So social media during this time, social media is a type of guru. I'm not saying the guru devotion guru, but is type of a teacher in the sense that it teaches us bad things, it teaches us good things. That depends on how you use it, right? So firstly we must know the difference between the good and the bad, then try to differentiate, right, what we are consuming. So it's really important here in the ancient wisdoms, what is good, what is bad. This is a general common sense that, of course, killing is bad, right? But what we consume can make you think that killing is good, right? There is a story about that, but of course, just leave it. I don't want to talk too much about that. So it is really important. Also, in the first paragraph, I think they talked about this text is a garland of essential points regarding religious and secular ethics, right? So here, what secular ethics is meaning, not religious, right? Not religious. What we do in our day-to-day life for non-religious things like interaction with others, right? But it can be turned into it can be a religious practice, but it doesn't need to be a religious practice, right? So actually, who while talking with Ivan and all, he gave me an amazing analogy about when Thaya Rinpoche and Song Rinpoche has used the tea. For all of us to survive, we need water, right? Right, we need water. That is a given. But for all of us to survive, we don't need tea. Coffee, you may need coffee. Some of you may be coffee addicts. So to survive, you may need coffee, but let's say tea. Tea is the safer option. So basically, for everybody needs human values. Like human value is like the water, right? So everybody needs it. So, but tea, religious is depends on how your mind is, right? If you want to dedicate your life towards being religious and taking refuge in the three jewels, and of course, if you can do it, it's best. But if you cannot do all this, it can be secular, right? Non-religious. But even though non-religious doesn't mean you have to kill, you have to do bad things, right? There is a core human value and like humanity, we call it, right? Humanity that needs to be there, even though you are like non-religious. So that's the thing. What's the time? Okay, so that's the thing that's there, right? So as we go on, let's just go on from the verse 1. Verse 1, okay? So this, all the others are like, what do we call, like just a introduction, or what we call forward by the translator and so on, right? So firstly is I pay homage to the exalted Lord Avakulokeshwara. So basically is that. So here, the first verse, I am a cherished child from the lands of north. I have met many people in my travel to distant places. I have understood their many exchanges. So my explanations are apt. I have discerned the way things are, so I am known for prosperity. So here, basically what Nakso had asked Dom for the, what do you call, the how to handle people, how to have social values that can be liked by everybody, right? So I'm sure that Dromtönpa Gyalwai Jungné was really proud. Here, the translator has given a short, what do we call, short footnote, not footnote, like a short forward, right? Like Dom's J's face lit up with a smile and throwing back his head and toss his braided hair behind him. Like this feels like so cinematic, giving a cinematic scene here. So basically, whatever Nakso had asked him, he was asking him about how to interact with people and so on. So here Dom is saying, in this verse, Dom is basically saying, I have many experience of having interaction with different people, right? So during Dom's time, one of the interaction that mostly may have happened, is that in Tibet, there was a lot of lepers, you know, leprosy? Yeah, leprosy, the people having sickness with leprosy, right? And there was a discrimination. Probably there was a lot of discrimination during that time in Tibet. Like the lepers could not come here and lepers could not come there. So one of the interactions may be how to interact, right? How like having this discrimination and having this experience of having feeling of discrimination between the lepers and all. So so he have many experiences that cause him to come up with a solution, of having interaction with different difficult people, right? So that's what he's boasting about here, basically. I would not say boast, but like he's making you understand that he has a lot of experience in screening this, right? So that's the thing. So let's go on to the second verse. So the second verse is the most important verse in all of this, right? The most important verse in all of the texts. So I would like to go on the second verse because I think we have a little time. The second verse is, wherever you travel, in whatever direction, wherever you may camp or find a place to stay, whoever you seek to befriend or associate with, being considerate of others is the root of human values. So that's the thing. Wherever we go, right? Many of you may have traveled to different parts of the world. So wherever we go, suppose we go to Europe, suppose we go to US, then whatever direction, suppose you go to the south side of the Europe or south side of the Singapore, right? Wherever you camp, I don't know whether you can camp in Singapore or not. So wherever you stay, basically, and whoever you seek to befriend or associate with, whether it's your family members, right? Whether it's your family members and you having interaction with family members and having like a work interaction with your colleagues, being considerate of the colleague or having a boss that is so, what do you call, so nagging. Is it nagging? Yeah, boss who is who is so bossy, who is so bossy and always puts his nose in your work. Being considerate is the root of all human values. Okay, so the question may come, how can I be considerate to the boss? Right? I hate the boss. The boss is always scolding me or not showing me any consideration. Why should I be considerate towards him? Right? So basically here, all of the human values of empathy and what do we call compassion, all of this arise from being considerate, right? So what is consideration? Okay, this question is for all of you. Anybody who can answer. What is consideration? Of course, we know the word consideration, right? Genuinely, what do you feel is consideration? Anybody?
Putting others first before yourself.
Okay, that's one way.
Jace, I'm considering you.
So, okay, consideration. Let's think of consideration in this way, right? Imagine, okay, somebody just came to this door, right? Imagine you are coming through that door, and here there are a lot of people, right? A lot of people, and each of us have a different language that we speak, right? Different language that we speak. Not in terms of words, like not in terms of like the words, I'm speaking Tibetan, you are speaking Chinese, but in terms of emotions, in terms of experiences, in terms of perspectives, right? And even for a moment, try to think yourself as you are being able to understand all of this, right? You are being able to understand all of the perspectives, all of the emotions, all of the, what do you call, experiences. You have the ability to understand, even for a moment, right? So basically, consideration is that, having the ability to understand the emotion, the language of each and every person's. That is really a huge task to think about, but having the ability to think about put yourself in that person's place and think about it, right? So that is the power of consideration. So to see the world through their eyes and understand what they are feeling, or basically it's in consideration itself, a lot of different values are, what do you call, a lot of different principles of Buddhist Buddhist teachings are involved, right? Like empathy and compassion and what do we call? What's the other things? Emotion, right? Knowing the emotion, all of these are needed. So let's try to apply this, what do we call? Timeless virtue of consideration to modern world, right? To modern world. Let's see. We can begin by asking ourselves, right? how can we cultivate a heart and a mind that listens, right? Basically, for consideration, you need to have a heart that is open, heart that is open, and understand and respect the different languages that I'm not saying the languages in the language sense, I'm saying the language in the experience and the emotions and the perspectives of the sense, right? So how can a centuries old philosophy basically here, consideration is the root of human values, right? So how can the ancient philosophy of being considerate to others help us in this modern world, right? Help us respect to thoughtful responses to others' feelings and perspectives. So as we try to answer these questions, we will uncover that the, what do we call it? The transformative power of consideration, right? It will open up your mind if you really think deeply about consideration. It's not just an ethical principle, but a practical tool for us to navigate this world, right? Navigate this complex world of online interactions, of social interactions, of office interactions with your boss, and etc. So consideration involves being thoughtful about others, the situation that they are in, and comfort of others, right? Not just letting go of yourself, being considerate, right? So, sorry. So let's try to apply this into modern context, right? Let's try to apply this into digital communication, right? Consideration. So most of your interactions may happen online, right? Suppose you message somebody, and previously it was not like that. You have to go to the person and ask whether you want to go or not, and so on, right? So let's imagine you're scrolling through your Instagram. I'm not saying you should scroll right now, but let's just imagine. Okay, you are scrolling to the Instagram, you are scrolling to your Facebook or whatever, right? Whatever social media platform that you use. Then you come across a post that triggers a strong emotion in you, whether it be happiness, whether it be anger, or any suggestions that come up recently? Huh? FOMO, feeling of left out. Yeah, like a feeling of left out, like some suggestion, some post that triggers that, right? So emotion. Then when that triggers a emotion from you, you are susceptible. Yeah, susceptible. I'm having tongue twister. So to the, what do you call, to react in a way, right? React in a way. Maybe it can be your friend sharing a personal achievement that may trigger a jealousy towards you, right? That may trigger like, okay, suppose your friend has bought what's the famous car here? Ferrari. Okay, your friend has bought your friend has bought a Ferrari, and okay, that may trigger a jealousy in you, and they have shared the post. That may trigger a reaction towards you, and you may feel jealousy towards them, right? Jealousy towards them, and the moment that in the split session, if you just react to that emotion, right? Or of course, you may feel good for him or them, her, and you may be saying very good and something like or share or whatever, right? So in that split second before you respond, whether it's a comment, whether it's a like, or whether it's an emoji or whatever. So there is a point where a choice has to be made, right? Whether you are just reacting based on your emotions or being considerate enough to think and understand yourself, what the state of emotion you are in, and helping them. This type of choice, if you just react on that emotion of jealousy and just write, instead of, let's say, instead of buying a Ferrari, you should have done that, whatever. What should you have done? You should have maybe donate it to the hospital, right? Donate it to the hospital. You should have helped you should have bought a house for your father and mother or whatever. You can write this type of comment, right? So that is basically fueled by your emotion of jealousy and not being considerate of what that person has gone through to achieve that, right? So whatever, I'm not just saying about cars, but about different types of achievements also. So that type of comment can either uplift, support, or cause misunderstanding, right? And cause a rift. Maybe some of you have been through that situation. Anybody who would like to share their personal experience on this? So, okay, just let's not try to gossip, right? Okay, so that can just lead to misunderstanding or negativity or so on. So, and especially when you are interacting online, right? You have a colleague, then you did a nice job on a report that needs to be done. Let's say Joyce has to do some report. Joyce has to do some report and the report is done. Then somebody message, then you send it in the what we call group chat or whatever, right? Then somebody sends a message saying you are on a you have really done this right, right? So what would you think? Is it a supportive or it can be sarcastic? Can't it? It can be sarcastic. Anybody? Where you don't know the tone that they are talking about, right? While having online, what basically I'm trying here to say is when you're having online interaction, because we don't have that human facial to facial interactions, we don't have that cues to guide us to the, suppose being sarcastic. How would you sound being sarcastic? You have done that right. No, you have done that right in the genuine sense. If you look at the visual cues, then you will feel like, oh, that's genuine, right? He's complimenting me. But if you look at the other cues, like I don't know how to act sarcastic. How to act? Oh yeah, that's a good one. Really good job. Like the tone itself, the how we talk, right? The tone itself will give us cues of having what we call having the whether it's sarcastic or whether it's a compliment, right? But during online interaction, we may misunderstand this type of things, right? Like just because of there's just a letter, there's no vocal inflections, there's no nothing. So when we communicate, it's really important to keep that in mind, right? And suppose somebody sends you a message like this in a tone which you think the boss sends you the message, right? And right now, the situation that you are in is that you are feeling negativity towards the boss, right? But the boss was complimenting you when he sent that. So, but you are in a negative state. Then what would you feel? Is the boss being sarcastic to me? Is the report okay? This type of questions will come, right? If you are in the negative state. So being considerate during that time means having an emotion checkup, like a health checkup. you do an emotional checkup of yourself, right? You do an emotional checkup of yourself, whether you are in the right emotion state to understand what the boss is saying or whatever your friend is saying, right? Have the mindfulness, right? Have the mindfulness we can apply the mindfulness practice here to know what type of emotion we are going through, have the mindfulness and the what's it called? Vigilant introspection, right? Have an introspection of your own self, your own state of mind during when you are interpreting the message, right? So that in my sense would lead to a more considerate, more like meaningful interaction online also, right? So that's the thing. So this type of like having the what do you call, having the reflection of own self, own state will help you not be reactive, right? We tend to do what, like, since we are so fast paced, if the boss sends something, then we, oh, really, do I need to do it again? Right? The person may feel like the boss is being sarcastic and have to react fast away that, do I need to do it again? Then the boss will have to again send a, what do we call, saying that, no, I'm complimenting you or so. A lot of misunderstandings happens like that, right, during this online this. So whenever you yourself are, this is about responding to others. Whenever you yourself are sending the message, you can think whether you are reacting based on what happened, right? What has happened. The content reflect. I would call it content reflection. The other one is inner reflection, right? Reflection of your own emotions and the state that you are in. Now the next one is the content reflection. Whatever you wrote, is it being too emotional? Because of emotion that I'm writing this, is it beneficial to others or not, right? To take a second, because of the instant gratification, we just want to just do it right now, just now. So we can take like 5 minutes break and think of it, right? Sorry. So that's the thing. Though even though you are sending this message or whatever message that you are going to send, I'm not saying that. Suppose you are firing your employee. I'm not saying that you should not fire. Of course, that's up to you. But like whatever you are writing, right? Whether, even though your intent is good, we should uh, retrospect. We should have a what do we call, introspection of whether the impact that the message you have sent is whether beneficial or not. So this type of small considerations, right? This is a consideration in a way, right? This type of small considerations will help you have more valuable and meaningful interactions online, right? We should always do your can we should always consider that whether our words can be misinterpreted or hurtful, despite having good intentions. Even if you write with good intention, it can be misinterpreted, right? So that's the thing. So basically, this is having consideration, and you are practicing right speech of the eightfold path, eightfold noble path, right? Right speech is basically you responding not based on your emotions, but on what is correct out of kindness and out of compassion and out of the mental purity without the negative emotions, right? So that's the right speech of the Eightfold Noble Path. Yeah, Eightfold Noble Path. And also, you are also practicing compassion and empathy, like trying to understand what that person may be going through, right? So you are also practicing mindfulness in the sense when you are practicing consideration, right? If you, in that second, so you are practicing mindfulness in the sense that what you are going through is being mindful of what you are doing, right? So all that. So also while having this online interaction, you could also have non-attachment, right? The non-attachment view. Which one is? Okay, so having non-attachment to the views that you may be writing down, right? It's not important to win. It's not important to have the last word in, right? Sometimes we have the last word in. I need to get the last word in. So that time your emotion is engulfed by the want to win, right? Want to win, or what do we call? In not jealousy, is the anger, or what do we call? It's the ego. Ego, yeah, it's the ego that's what's happening. So it's important to have all this. So this is how we are just practicing consideration, right? So here, basically, what Dom is saying is being considerate of others is the root of human values. So we are applying it to the online interaction that we have these days, right? How to be considerate while having a digital communication online. So that's the thing. Okay, so that's the thing. So also, while practicing consideration, you are also while having that digital communication, you are also having the what do we call your good karma or bad karma, right? Let's interpret this as a good digital karma and a bad digital karma, right? So you may have seen instances of where somebody had posted something 5 years, 10 years back, right? Posted something, and he is doing something good now, but that post from what do we call 10 years before comes back to bite him. Have you ever seen instances like that? Yes, this is what I'm talking. Your good karma or bad karma. Suppose you have done good in the and posted good things, right? About a comment or whatever. That may come to bite you back. So here, whatever action we are doing is a karma in the sense, right? Karma in a sense. So being considerate of whether you are doing the good karma and being considerate of what you are posting online can be a really good practice for your own practice, right? So that's the thing. The other thing is we can apply the what do you call principle of interconnectedness towards this right consideration. So the action I may do have long-lasting impacts, right, on the others and so on, of course. So compassion and everything is same. So that's the thing. So sometimes when we have this digital communication, we should be considerate of the fact of respecting others' boundaries, right? Suppose your boss messages you around, suppose you are the boss, okay? You are the boss and you are messaging somebody around 1 a.m. Yeah, night 1 a.m. Do this work done, right? So even as a boss, of course, there is a deadline that needs to be work in this fast-paced world, dog eat dog world, and so on. But at least you should be considerate towards that, right? Of course, like there may be some situation where you have to do it, but being considerate of, like, even if you have to do it, the wording should be nice. So that's what I'm saying. So in the context of Buddhist philosophy, it's like every and each individual is unique, right? We must not think I can do this, so you can do this, right? So in the Buddhist context also, there is that what do you call three different types, right? So Bodhisattva and what's that? Sawaka, and the listener, right? So each of them have a unique different quality. So each and every individual also has a unique and a different boundary, right? Different boundaries. So that's the thing. So also like this all the is okay. So that's how like being considerate, right? So as mentioned here, being considerate of others is the root of human values, right? So right now I'm just applying it to online things or whatever, but it can apply to anywhere, right? So how now this consideration, how can we cultivate it? So one is attentive listening, right? So listening what they have to say and being detached from your own emotions, knowing what they are saying is like as a third person, right? So because some communication, when it's involved to you, you get emotionally attached to it, and you would be doing that, right? So some are mindfulness practices. Of course, if you practice mindfulness, then you will be able to know your emotions. So basically, one of the things is these ancient wisdoms in the ancient texts, lot of mentions of each and every emotion that we may feel during, right? We may feel is mentioned and specifically detailed in a detailed manner. So knowing all this, like, can help you become more considerate, right? So, of course, the challenges we may face is how to overcome the self-centeredness. Being considerate means a little bit letting go of yourself, right? A little bit letting go of yourself. So we have that natural tendency towards self-centeredness, right? This is what I want, then I want it done, right? We have this type of self-centered. So we must learn to shift the focus towards others' needs also, others' thinking also, right? So that is basically practicing bodhicitta, right? Bodhicitta in the sense. So, because our self-centeredness is, we usually think my view is right. We don't take the time to introspect, right? Have you ever heard of the guy called Tugan Crowley? Oh, no, okay. So Tugan Crowley is basically, he was a murderer, right? Francis Crowley. Okay, you can just check it up later. Tugan Crowley. So he was basically a murderer, like mass murderer, yeah. So when he was like when he was sentenced to death, right? When he was sentenced to death, then the last thing the police were going to capture him. There was a letter that he wrote, right? What he wrote was, uh, under my coat is a kind heart that won't harm anyone. That's one thing. And when he was sentenced to the electric chair for because of that in mass murdering, this is what the last words that he said was, "This is what I get for defending myself." So this is self-centeredness at play, right? We as individuals, we have the self-cherishing mind, which creates a view of ours being the right, your own view being the only right thing in the world. This was a person who was killing, yet he was thinking that I won't harm anyone. I'm doing right, right? So we must try to question ourselves instead of always trying to question others. We must try to question our own self-centeredness, right? So these are like mindfulness meditation, of course, like the non-self meditation and all will help you uh, do that. So I think it's already time. So basically, the tapao for this session, the takeaway for this session, is that you need to learn to be considerate, right? And how to be considerate is one of the just examples of online communication that I gave you. So this, of course, as we go more into the text, like verse 3 and so on, we can learn how to be considerate. Like there may be some consideration or like problems when I'm being considerate to the others, but the others are not being considerate to me, right? So these situations will be dealt towards in later on series. As mentioned in the verse 3, this is just a general goal, right? So now I will put emphasis on others. So Dom will, of course, as we go on more and more, we'll try to go more specifically the problems that we will face. But right now we are just scratching the surface, right? Surface of this wisdom. So as we close this session, I'm just reminded of 1,000 miles, we quote, of 1,000 miles, we have just gone on 1 mile, right? So the like a real practiced persons would know that we still have a lot to go, right? So like that, we are just taking a single step towards the different human values, right? So so from tomorrow on, I would request all of you to think about the personal problems that you face and try to bring it out here, like during the question and answer session, your real world experiences as a layperson. Of course, I won't have this office problems and all that. So we will try to relate it, blend the old with the new, blend the old wisdom with the new experiences that your personal experiences that we are having, and this know this as not just historical artifacts that are placed on the altars and prayed upon, but as a medium that offers clarity towards us, right? So with that, I think I will end the session. I think it's the correct time. And any question and answers, I will try to answer. Any?
Lillian.
Thank you, Rinpoche, for your wise wisdom, teaching, guidance. Just a layman questions. Can modern wisdom apply on mentally ill patient? Can we apply modern wisdom on a mentally ill patient? Mentally ill patient, yeah.
Modern wisdom in the sense?
In the sense that, like for instance, if you have like close contact with a mentally ill person, how can we apply this modern wisdom on them? Thinking that they may not be in the right stage of mind, yeah, to understand what you're trying to, guide them, maybe provide advice.
Okay. Modern wisdom, do you mean ancient wisdom?
Oh, sorry. Oh, Asian wisdom.
Okay.
Yeah, all right.
I thought modern wisdom in the modern sense of
Modern society, Asian wisdom in the modern society.
okay. I was thinking of modern wisdom in the sense of modern psychology. Okay, so
maybe.
yes, of course we can apply, right? But this mentally ill person depends on how the seriousness of the illness is, right? We can apply to ourselves, we can apply. Of course, they may not understand because they are like mentally disabled, right? Disabled, and they may not be able to understand such like concepts, like they may not have the ability, right? But we can apply ourselves, and we can apply it on ourselves for them to be more considerate, right? Not for them to be considerate, we can apply ourselves to be more considerate towards them, right? Like if somebody is mentally ill, like we may face a problem where we get frustrated, right? Frustrated. But we can think of the situation like, what if we were in their shoes, right? Usually we have the tendency to think that I can do it, so why can't they do it? Yeah, this tendency is a problematic tendency, right? So I am in the right state of mind. Why is that mentally ill patient not able to understand this? This not only applies to mentally ill patients, but also like if you have parents at home that are like super like 90 years old and don't know how to use digital content, right? This is also same, right? You think this is the way to pay something, and this our parents doesn't know, but you scold them, right? This happens, and this is not the right way, of course. Like they were born in a different generation, different time period, different time period. So we should be considered in the sense that if we were in that time period, of course we may not have been so adept, so like we may not have been so what we call good at using technology. So we can apply that what do you call, concept of consideration for ourselves for while attending to the ill person, mentally ill or whatever type of ill person. But we must not be forcing, you understand this, the mentally, we must not force the mentally ill person or whatever to, this is the, being considerate of others is the root value. You, you have to learn this. If we, it's just an effort that is in vain, right? We have to understand the situation, like the physical situation may have created the, what do you call, suppose they bang their head and so on, right? Have an accident or so on, and it left them mentally disabled, right? So we can use this type of values, but I hope this answers. Yeah. Okay. So any more? From a social media point of view? That's the thing. So I may ask the question down to you, right? So let's say you are being considerate with your boss, right? You are being considerate, understanding the boss's needs. But the boss is not being considerate with you, right? Messaging at, what do you call, non-appropriate hours, like what do you call? After work hours, when you are not working, weekends, is it weekends or weekdays? Weekends, yeah, holidays, Sundays. Then what would you do?
Just don't reply.
What? Don't
Just
reply.
don't reply until Monday.
Clever one. Any other answers? Yeah.
Don't turn on the blue reading tick.
Turn off the online tick. Okay. I think.
Of course, all those plus, there are times where you have to put yourself into their shoes because I think they are also under stress when they receive the thing. That's why sometimes that works actually. Yeah. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, think of it. Okay, they're also under stress. So let's say I'm in situation will be the same thing as well. So just do it, just answer, and then that'll be it.
Yeah. Of course, we can see itself here that each person has a unique way of handling it, right? Of course, if you don't answer today, you are going to be fired. If that message comes, then uh, these are situations which are like complex to handle, right? You have to be considerate. You have to be considerate towards others, but there may be a certain limit to each individual, right? Like some may prefer not to be like it differs from individual to individual. So we must put in their shoes, of course, like they are under stress from some other upper boss or whoever they are dealing with. So if we try to understand that, then maybe the real kind person would help them, even though it's their, what do we call, holiday, right? So depends on what you do, right? So that's the thing. Any more answers on that? Okay, so any questions? Otherwise, we can end it here. No? Okay. So, dedication. Yeah. Oh, I thought there was. Okay, so Jambe Bawo, Chedor Chamba, Kundo Sambo, Tenya, Deshin, Deda Kunje, Jeso, Dalo, Gewa, Deda, Tanche, Raton, Tuson Shibi, Java, Tanche, Moa, Kanga, Jodunga, Dage, Zawa, the Kunja, Sambo, Shiche, Raton, Overe, Chanju, Senjo, Rinpoche, Maje, Bana, Jeju, Jeba, Nyava, Membada, Kone, Kondo, Pewa, Shu, Arera, Yekoye, Shingansu, Pendan, Dewa, Mana, Join, Jerezon, Tinzinja. Chabe Sidi Vardo